There were no Samoan lawyers in this industry back in the day that were doing what I'm doing, which is giving back to the Pasifika community. A lot of people see lawyers in the negative light, and my job is to change it. And how do we do that? Step by step. We build the trust in the community. And that's all I want to do, is I just want to help my people and do good things for my people. The biggest problem is that we're underrepresented. We are unaware of our rights and our entitlements. My job as a Pasifika lawyer in Queensland is to educate our people. The best part of my job is being able to see the smile on my people's faces, to be able to see them progress on and move on with their lives. We have a saying in our firm that says, our job or our mission is to enrich the lives of every single one of our clients. And I believe that to be very true. The best part of my job is leaving our clients in a better position than before they met us.
Manonsu fo maua malangi ma ile pa ia ma le malo si o tato atunu I so o se tafa la langi o to maua mai e tato fa sa launga nei tu la le fiafi ia o nei ava no e o fo lo fam fata lo fa tuai ia o to pa ia sa to fa sa mo manatu le au auna o le ale o lava ia se fa matalanga o pa ia le popo o le pale solo o to pa ia mo to man ia e au lavana o whaatalo whātu swafa man malo tato li malo tato whaolo Yesu Keriso I le nei afi afi ia mo e o lo maua mai tato whaasalaunga ia o lo whapena on whea ngai ma ngaluenga ia malo le ono sai malo fo I tawata I nei vai ngo le afi afi mo o to o lo whapena on noftaptapua I mai whale ia awa maota malawa ia Samoai ia manu ia lava lo to tapua inga e o whalofu mo whapitoa foi se whata alofa I pa ia lau whailanga luenga tofi o le tua ia o lo whapena ona mana waina na mana waola e ala le upa folfola I lea whatawhaitaulanga ma lea whatawhaitaulanga I so o se tafa o le lalangi ia o le avanol nei ia o le whata alofa na ia ma lea nganga o le whaaloalo a wala ngase leo ia ona ua tato iai foi tato po kalami Laulua Fesilafa'i ua iai foi ia se mafuanga ia o iai foi ia le mea taua o tatau antu na tulunga mo le silafia o tangata o mo le Pasifika ia e whamalulu atu Samoa tawasu atu I puvai malu I puenga ia ona o tato po kalami nei aso o le atele le itu whaperitania e whaingo fia mo le lautele o tangata Pasifika ona ia le tato guest o lo whapena ona tato whaatasi ia awa ia tato por kalame ia I'd just like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you who are tuning in tonight to our show Laulua Fesilafa'i. It's a pleasure to have you with us and thank you for joining us this afternoon or this evening. If you're out there and you're working, be safe and I hope you are safe. I pray that God's blessings and coverage over you, His safety over you. For those who need healing, I pray for those who need healing. May God be with you. But today, a warm welcome to our listeners. We're honoured to be joined by a very special guest and a leader in the community, and also an advocate in our community. None other than Sylvia Coombe. For migrant workers' rights, especially those under the National Palm Scheme, which supports temporary workers from Pacific nations and Timor-Leste. Currently, the reason why we've got her on today and we have this special guest with us is because she's currently serving as an ambassador for the Personal Protection Visa Project with the Department of Home Affairs, where she continues to be a strong voice for navigating complex migration pathways, not only for Pasifika people, but the wider community. However, today we will have her speak in relation to the program, the personal protection visa, her insights on leadership, especially for Pasifika women, and also talked about other important work she's doing around visas and advocacy. Sylvia, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us.
Talofa lava. Oh, oh, Talofa lava. Bulavinaka. My name is Sylvia Coombe, like you introduced me, and I'm very delighted to be on the show. Yes, so I'm not only, I've got two Fijian grandmothers and one Chinese grandfather and one Irish grandfather. So I grew up in the beautiful islands of Fiji on the mainland of Viti Levu. I was born in Suva, the capital city, but I grew up mostly in the western side of Viti Levu in Nadi, where the international airport is. I'm more a city girl than a village girl, only because my dad is a musician, so he did a lot. He was involved in a lot of bands around the hotels. But my dad was quite strict, very strict upbringing, especially for girls in the islands. We were Catholic. I went to Catholic primary school, so we all got the high of the nuns and the brothers. And I remember I've been there for 18 years, lived there for the first 18 years, and then I came across to Australia, and Melbourne has been the only state that I've lived in. Well, the thing is, I'm not sure if many people know, but we had our first military coup when the military took over our government in 1987. And because my dad had a mixed cultural background, because the other thing I didn't mention was my dad didn't know his Irish grandfather. He was raised by an Fiji Indian um, father who actually raised him. And because of that, he had an Indian surname. And therefore, you know how important your surnames are, when you have an Indian surname, people look at you that you are Indian, Fiji Indian. So during that coup, there was a little bit of racism towards people that were Fijian Indians. And so he fled to Melbourne in 1988 after the coup. And why this is all so important is he's actually a product of applying for protection visa in all the way in 1988. And that's one of the reasons how we actually came over across our whole family of five.
It's actually going to be my next question. Who were the main players or the key players in your journey? Dad being one, were there any others that helped you in your journey to becoming where you are now? That we know why or where it derives from, your passion to be in the space. But were there any other key players or key people along the way?
I think the other two very key, actually three, is the women in my life, and I it's only when I've gotten older I realized how crucial my mother and her mother and my father's mother. So it's so important how the mothers, uh, the way they bring up their children, the way they, discipline us, the way they, sacrifice for their family and their children. I didn't, all those things when I was much younger, I took that all for granted. It's only till reflect as a leader how that, all the sacrifices and the things that these three women, my mother, that both grandmothers have done in my life, these are the ones that have shaped me and molded me to become what I am now. And of course, throughout that whole journey, I've had God in my life. There've been times I've veered off the path, and there've been times I've got back on the path and veered off, but God has always been with me. And I think that's from that Catholic upbringing and then going all the way to where I am now in my Christian journey to trying to bring more people towards the kingdom.
That's really good. I guess from a Pasifika perspective, our faith is really important to everyone, and it is a source of, like a fountain that we can become anew. So my next question was, what challenges did you face? Because I know for sure you would have faced so many challenges. I know one of the challenges, just hearing the start of your, I guess, a bit about your background, your dad would have faced so many adversities. His move to
You know,
Melbourne is that product of why you're where you are right now. Your
yeah.
journey, I wanted to focus on your journey, Sylvia. What are some of the challenges that you've faced, and how did you overcome them?
Okay, what I didn't say before about my dad even coming across as on the protection visa was I I came a year later on student visa, and it's very hard because I look white. You're not actually, unfortunately, amongst your own people back in those days, you're not seen as a Fijian because you don't look Fijian. Even the white Palangis are saying, "Well, how come you're Fijian? How come you don't have the skin color or the hair?" The worst thing is, I don't mind. This is when I was much younger. I don't mind the Palangis saying it and the other nationalities, but it actually hurts more when it's your own people saying it. Are you sure you're Fijian? Like, where did you come? Where did you grow up in? Like, how long were you living back in the island? And that's the I've had that said to me, even by people throughout becoming. I'm the president of the Fijian Association for the last. This is now my 7th year, and people have actually said that to me. People my age, um, people like in their 30s, 40s, from my own community, actually saying that to me. I've had some from other non-Pacifica and even some Pacifica people say that to me, like, "Oh, are you Fijian? Are you, like, are you sure?" Like, it's like you have to justify that, all those years of experience. And even there was challenges back home. It wasn't, Fiji was not a paradise all the time for people, with a Catholic school upbringing, and all the other things, living, 5 of us living in a 2-bedroom house. And then you have the relatives pop in whenever they want, and they living, in the same house. There's like 8 beds in one room, all those things. It's very hard. And then coming to Australia as an international student, and then my parents having to save that money to pay for the expensive fees that an overseas student would have to pay, because dad was doing his protection visa together with my mom, and we had to do, because I was like 18 at that time. I did my own separately as an international student. It was so hard, the sacrifices that they had to go through. And it just is, I don't know what it is, but it's only when, as I get older, I just realize the mammoth of what would have gone through our parents' lives and their parents before. of all the things that they go through. And that's why it makes so important that decisions that we make now, your generations to come will remember. And I just, I still can't fathom like all the sacrifices they made.
That's very powerful what you've touched on there, Sylvia. The power of your decisions now and the impacts of your decisions now and how they will affect you in the future. I'm a strong believer in that, because one wrong decision in your childhood can set and veer your path away by so much. So good on you. Good on you. For our listeners out there, you have Sylvia here who's come here on a student visa. Now, for those of you who don't know what those conditions are, they're very, very restrictive, meaning that there are a lot of conditions imposed on student visas. Now, alongside that, she's also got her parents who are also going through the personal protection visa. Now, a family to all be going through that whole situation. And I like how you've tied in the parents, your parents. It's this notion of never forgetting the sacrifices that your parents have made to get you where you are. It's an experience that no one else gets to have, Sylvia, and I'm glad you're sharing this story with us, because I know a lot of our Pasifika community out there it will really resonate with them, because they will be going through similar situations as well. And that's why it's important for us to share with our community these stories and share with them your position and your job and what you're doing in the community. So without further ado, I do want to get into it, because it's going to be a very, very interesting segment for everyone, and I think it's important for everyone to tune in. So, Sylvia, tell me, can you please explain to us what the protection visa is? Now, it says subclass 866, and I guess why that's important to understand its true purpose.
So the protection visa is Australia's response to ensure that the people that come to Australia are the ones who really need protection from whatever they're fleeing from. And remember, Australia is not the only country that's doing this. Every other country in the world is taking in people who are fleeing from their countries from genuine safety things that are happening in their country, like wars, famine, those kind of things. The other thing is, this is a permanent visa for genuine asylum seekers at the risk of serious harm if they continue to stay in their home country. Um, it's not a migration pathway, which a lot of people who apply mistake it for, and they apply because they think if I apply for it, it'll make me stay here longer. I can tell you something. My father applied for it in 1988, and yes, the process was a long process. It took years, right? Now the government, the Australian government, has made it so new changes that if you apply for a protection visa, you will get a response in less than 11 weeks, whether it's a yay or a nay. And the other thing is, it's just to reinforce, is it's for those who can't go back home due to any the danger, the persecution, discrimination. Now, I mentioned war and famine and things like that, but there could be other things like political things that are happening in your country that you can't possibly go back for. And this visa is is um is assessed case by case. Just because someone was successful in getting this visa doesn't mean you are going to be successful in that visa, even though you think you might have the same circumstances as that person. Everyone's got different stories that they have written on the paper to the government, different things and circumstances that are actually affecting the assessment of the application. And the other thing I just wanted to add is the statistics available on the Department of Home Affairs website, which is by law they have to produce the statistics for people to actually see, and you can actually see month by month which countries are actually applying for protection visas, and it even breaks it down to, in that particular month, how many got rejected. They don't obviously say names, but they're listing the countries. And why this segment is so important is, unfortunately, our Pasifika people are on that list of the top countries that are actually applying for it, and Fiji being one of the main ones um, that is applying for protection visas. I mean, just in April, just in last month, there was 108 applicants from Fiji. These are people that are living in Australia, not offshore. These are the ones living in Australia applying for protection visa. And also in that month, if we talk about Pacifica countries, Papua New Guinea had 45 people apply for protection visa. Every month, you'll see statistics of which are available on the website.
You've mentioned how it takes time to make these, I guess, visa applications for it to get to an outcome. What's the general time frame, just if for people who are genuinely going through these circumstances, Sylvia, what's the general time frame that you can, I guess, give to our people to ensure that they know, okay, if I am intending to go in and apply for this visa, this is the time frame I'm going to be expecting?
11 weeks. In around 11 weeks, you will know your outcome.
11 weeks, all right. And I guess a lot of our community will be thinking, oh, this is another avenue. This is another avenue just for me just to stay. And a lot of people would be thinking of that. You touched on it as well. What are some circumstances? And I know it's probably a very broad question, but because our Pasifika people are on that list of people that have been denied, or the countries that have been denied protection visas, what are some circumstances that you think would, if some people are going through it, that they may get through or approved on a protection visa?
Well, I'm not sure. Like, for example, for Pacifica countries now, I think unless your country is going through, massive terrorism and war and, famine and things like that, um, the chances of you getting it just on those principles will actually be exactly low. However, it will possibly boil down to personal circumstances. So, for example, if there's many factors that would be impacting this person's application, but it could be domestic violence, the fear of domestic violence, possibly by one perpetrator or many perpetrators, uh, especially if you come from a rural village, those kind of things. Um, we even asked, as community leaders, we've even asked, we see some people do go through, but the Department of Home Affairs is very hesitant to tell us the exact criteria of which applicants are successful, because it may open up the gateway of people using those excuses, not in a genuine sense, to apply for the visa. Because what's happening is, if you apply for a visa and there's someone from Palestine or Israel applying for the same visa, and you put yours in first, that person that genuinely needs the visa, his application is actually pushed down. So if we're putting all our ones that are not genuine, the others that really need the protection are pushed down the pile.
Perfect. You mentioned there's this myth and I see it all the time as well, where there are so many different messages that are out in the community. People saying one thing when it's actually another thing. What are some of the most dangerous myths that are, I guess, circulating around especially the Pacifica community? You've mentioned a couple of them. Are there any others?
I think one you actually spoke on a bit earlier, and that was they see this as a pathway for permanent residency. It's not. They because the protection visa itself is quite cheap. I think it's $45. I'm not sure, but it's that cheap to apply for compared to a marriage one or all the other visas. Because it's quite cheap, people think that if I apply for it, there's a very high chance, because my friend, my uso actually got permanent residence file, and he said it was pretty quick and he got it straight away. There's a high chance that I'm actually going to get um also get granted the protection visa, but it's not. Like I said, everyone's circumstances is different, and that's how the assessor will assess the application. Because you and I know that there's things that people tell us what they said in the application, which is different to what they actually wrote on the application. Because sometimes you got the application, but you tell your friend it was it was so easy, I got it in 5 weeks, but you actually had circumstances you were too, you didn't want your friend to know about, which you actually wrote, and that what got you the application. For example, if there's a fear of abuse or something, if you go back, especially if you are LGBTQI or something like that in your village.
Okay, all right. Thank you for sharing that, Sylvia. For those people who are obviously thinking that, oh yeah, this is a good idea for me, you might want to think again. And I want Sylvia to touch on the consequences for someone who applies without genuinely meeting the criteria. Because as you've already touched on, it's actually not beneficial for everyone who's applying, because if you're just throwing it in there just because your friend said so, and the friend said that thinks it's a good idea that you're gonna get this visa and stay in Australia longer, you're actually ruining someone else's chance who genuinely meets it. So, what are I guess, the serious consequences? Are there any consequences for those people that don't meet this but still put it through?
So this is I'll tell you some examples of what's actually been happening. There are people with already been granted a visa, like a student visa or a palm worker visa, which actually had 3 years on it or 2 years on it or whatever. But someone told them to go and apply for a protection visa. Therefore, when they applied for the protection visa, their other visa got cancelled because they got now this one going on. If they now get rejected on the protection visa, you've got no visa to go back to. You've just lost that student visa that you had, or your palm worker visa, which was valid for 3 years or 4 years. That's gone. And they don't realize once you get rejected, it actually stays on your record permanently, meaning if you will definitely get deported when you go back to your home country, and then a couple of years later you decide, oh, I might want to go and visit my family in Australia because there's a big wedding or some big birthday, whatever. No, because there's a very high chance you will get rejected because of what you've done now, applying for a protection visa and getting the visa rejected. And that may also flow on to your children. Imagine you get rejected on protection visa, you get sent back to the island. Years later, 18-year-old son or daughter wants to go and study at Monash Uni or some university or school or training college, there's a chance that their visa or scholarship or application will get rejected because of what you have done for applying for a protection visa, and the reasons you have put down were not justified.
It all comes down, again, it does come down to your decisions now, because what you do now will impact you in the future. You want to put something in like this and not take this seriously, and a lot of our people out there take this way too lightly. Oh yeah, I'm just going to throw in a application for a protection visa. You've heard it there. Number one, if you're on a palm scheme visa that's valid or a student visa that's valid, as soon as you make that application, you lose your right to that visa. If that outcome comes back and you're not successful, too bad, so sad. You've lost your visas and you've got no visa to fall back on. Plus, you've got a big X on your record. So when you do go back, if you're having to come, and this is one of the main reasons why a lot of people want to come back and visit Australia, is to attend a wedding, to attend a funeral. You know, these are important milestone events that you're given the chance to, but because you were not doing the right thing right now, and you try to put that in, and you were rejected. I'm sorry. It's important for our community to know, if if you have genuine reasons, then apply. If not, stay far away from it, because you'll put yourself in a worse position. So thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for clearing that up. I think that's very important, and that's I've learned a lot from, I guess, the consequences of doing this. Now, talking about the community, there are so many unregistered and unlicensed migration advisors out there giving misleading advice. How can our people protect themselves from this risk and make sure that they're getting the accurate and that they're getting accurate and legal information and not being misled, Sylvia?
I I just want to add something to the question before. If the immigration find out that you actually gave misleading information, you can actually get fined. You'll actually get fined, which means if you can't pay it, you will owe the Commonwealth, and that will impact you coming back ever to Australia. You'll get a fine, and you can also face jail time. And that is why, even using someone who is, oh, my friend's friend who has lodged so and so's paper, and they got the papers approved, a bridging visa approved, a protection visa, sorry, approved. They can do your thing for $100 or $500. Oh, don't pay that much. Don't pay $12,000. My uncle can do it for you for, $500. I think the sad thing is, and my I'm using my father as an excuse. He went through a proper lawyer, and he paid thousands of dollars. We were like, all of us were working to pay those immigration fees, because once dad gets his, this is our mindset. Once the main applicant gets the visa approved, everyone that can jump onto that application and get their visa. We were like, every cent we had, we were new to the country. Every cent we had went into the migration fees and all that. What I'm trying to say is, although they are expensive, although they can be expensive, you must get your advice for any type of migration information from a registered migration agent. And these people, even if someone says to you they're registered, look them up on your phone, on your phone, It's a website called OMARA. It's the Office of the Migration Agents Registration Authority, and the website is www.mara.gov.au. In there, it will list all the registered migration agents. The other thing that you can get if you can't afford an agent yet, the Department of Immigration highly recommends people first. The first step is to actually try and get free confidential legal assistance through the Department of Home Affairs. In Victoria, the agency that is actually funded by the Department of Home Affairs to actually help out with this, to see whether or not you are successful, not successful, sorry, whether or not you are applicable for protection visa, is the Victorian Refugee Legal. And in Queensland, it's the Refugee and Immigration Legal Service. These people make sure that you get the correct information, and they'll actually help you assess whether or not you should even try and apply. Because although it's actually only $45, what you're doing is you're putting that false hope. If your application is not genuine, you're putting false hope on yourself. And also, like I said before, your application is added to the queue of all the other applications that need to be assessed for that period. And the Department of Home Affairs go through a lot of applications every month. So if you can imagine, like with the added Pasifika ones on it, it's quite a lot, and not many of them are successful in actually getting the protection visa. So basically, just make sure the migration agent is registered in Omara, and make sure that if you can't afford it, try and get free legal assistance. You can find it on the Department of Home Affairs website. The list of in whatever state you live in, they've got different legal agencies that are funded by the government to actually provide free legal assistance.
Thank you for clarifying that. It's important for our community to know who to approach, who to not approach, and who to approach. Because, as Sylvia has already explained, getting the right legal advice is important. And there are other avenues of getting information other than going to an untrustworthy, word of mouth source. She's already mentioned the Department of Home Affairs. There are community organisations out there that have information that is dispersed by the different departments in the government. They provide pamphlets, they provide information sessions. All of these things that you can rely on are there for your using. But please do not go and use someone that you just heard from your friend, unless it's an accredited migration agent. Then I would highly recommend you get the professional advice. Get professional advice. At least even if you're paying, at least you know that it's been professionally done. The advice you're getting is qualified advice. And touching on that, obviously our community leaders are very good at making sure that we are able to spread the word. So, Sylvia, how can our community leaders and ambassadors, what role do they play in making sure that the message gets out to the wider Pasifika community across Australia?
Yeah, community leaders, they are the trusted voices. And I think one of the main things is, unfortunately, some of them are actually not well aware of the purpose of the personal protection visa. So I think the main thing is community leaders actually need to get educated themselves, and not only that, educate their board members, educate the community, and work with work with the legal experts to help prevent this misinformation and to help protect the community. For example, they can, I think each state has, they call it a community liaison officer. The Department of Home Affairs has a community liaison officer for each state. And that community liaison officer actually catches up with you, or as a community leader, or sends you information to disseminate to your community. And as a leader, you're responsible for sharing that information. As a leader, you're responsible to actually, when you hear in church meetings, or when you're having a function and someone is giving misinformation, you're actually meant to step up as a leader and say, excuse me, that's actually not correct. I think you should go and get free legal advice. I think you should go and go and see a migration agent. You're meant to actually step up and stop this misinformation spreading. Unfortunately, I think as Pasifika people, we were taught from back in the islands, not only us, but a lot of multicultural communities. We respect our elders. We respect, there's people that we respect in community. Even though we did in the islands, we also still do it now. That thing of respect. And sometimes when it's even our own elders that are saying the wrong things, we actually must respectfully actually say, unfortunately, that's not correct information, uncle. That's not correct information, auntie. And actually educate them, because maybe they didn't know. Maybe they generalized, or thought that that was the way because someone got their papers that way, or someone's uncle helped and done it for half the price of a migration agent. So education is so important. I think the more the leaders and ambassadors get educated and more aware of what's happening in this space of the protection visas, and not only protection visas, all visas, the more aware and educated you are, the more better then you can help your own community, and not only your community, but other communities.
I think that wraps up our questioning, but I think we've gone through a lot there. And to kind of reiterate, the role of our community leaders is to be advocates, but to also stand up for misinformation as well. Stand up and say, if you hear the misinformation, your job is to make sure the community know that that information is incorrect. But that also starts with our community leaders knowing the correct information as well. So if you're a community leader, it's important to attend workshops. I know the DFAT, I know Department of Home Affairs, they do a lot of workshops, they do a lot of community meetings, and it's important for our people to be there, for our people to have a voice. Because if we're not there, we don't have a voice, we don't know what we're doing, and you don't know what you don't know. And then we're left in a position where we're just left to sit on our own laurels and rely on information that's given to us from other people, and we try and compile it and make it sound all nice and fancy, but in essence it's unreliable information. So thank you, Sylvia. I think we're going to take a quick break, and then once we come back, we're just going to finish off with some questioning around, I guess, women in leadership. You're obviously in a very, very high position as the ambassador, doing great work in the community, and I know a lot of women out there would be looking up to you, thinking, "How do I get there? How do I attain something like that? Or at least what is the path for me to get there?" So we'll take a quick break, and once we're back, we'll go through our next set of questions. Thanks, guys.
Samoa, Lau Samoa, Fa'amua mua le atua, o ia o lo'u fa'avae. Ao mai ni puapuanga, fa'amalo situ maupea, o te alofa ia te oe Lau Samoa. Talofa Samoa lo'u atunu upeleleanga. Ai sei o upese pese atu mafamatala. Lo matamofi ele mafaya upuna famatala. Ua numera tasifo I oe ile Pasifika. Lau Samoa, Lau Samoa, fa'amua mua le atua, o ia o lo'u fa'avae. Ao mai ni puapuanga, fa'amalo situ maupea, o te alofa ia te oe Lau Samoa. Le mawhai o nana lolo usa ufana uai.
Welcome back to our show, guys. It's good to have you here. And for those of our listeners who are just joining, we've got the one and only Sylvia Coombe, the ambassador, on our show today to talk about. We've already spoken about that, so if you do want to rewatch this segment, go back because there's been a lot of information and a lot of useful information for you to rewatch and upskill yourself on. But for now, Sylvia, you are a strong voice for Pasifika women. Now tell me, what do you think? What unique strengths do you think Pasifika women bring to the table in terms of leadership? Because there's a massive push now, and I'm all for it, for women in leadership roles, and we're seeing prime ministers, we're seeing ministerial candidates, we're seeing CEOs, we're seeing business managers, everything. Women in sports. What strengths do you think Pasifika women bring to the leadership role?
I think one of the big strengths that our Pasifika women bring us is, they teach us in leadership training, when execs and even management go, is to lead, you have to serve. And women have been doing that ever since they were born. They were either looking after their families, their brothers. As little girls, they're looking after their brothers or sisters. They've always had that strong sense of being a servant. That's all, and all they've been doing since birth. Now, as they've grown up, they've learned that servant leadership role. They've actually, it's been inherent in them, and they take that on in any leadership role because they put others first before themselves. And that's one of the big strengths that our Pacifica women have. The other one is we women have very deep respect for relationships. We value our culture because back home, if you look at every island, it's normally the women that preserve those cultures through their weaving, through their storytelling, through their songs, and through their dances. Yes, the men do also do that too, but the women are the ones who are charged in all the different islands to actually ingrain that and to pass that down to the children and all that. So we're good. Very powerful storytellers. We have intergenerational leadership, which is leadership that is passed down from elders to elders down to the future generations, and it's our women who are the guides, because we honor the past and guide our children, guide them into the future, because it's our women. If you look at now, it's our women that are doing a lot of the guiding. Although they may have men in their lives, or they may not have men's lives, it's always tasked to the woman to be the one to guide the child, whether it's helping them with their homework. I nearly said doing their homework. That's what I did with my children. Helping them with their homework, or taking them to their rugby matches, training and everything. You'll always see the mom sitting there in the big coat in the cold, having their cup of tea, but they're there to guide their children, and to and it could be not only their children, it could be their nieces and nephews. Women have always been there serving the community, and that's why we make great leaders.
Of servant leadership is something that a lot of our people do bring to the table, and mainly our women. You're so correct in that sense that women are just born and raised in this notion of service to others. So it's really good that you've brought that on, because I go by a saying all the time that the pathway to leadership is through service, and I stick by that. And it's so good that you've actually brought that up, because I couldn't agree more with you. One of the most important things that our women are doing is service, and service they've done from the start. So in terms of cultural balance and, I guess, professionalism, how do you balance that? How do you balance that, and how do you think women should balance it? This cultural expectation and professional ambitions.
I think the most important thing is, you like I'm a manager in my job now. Is my actual paying job, the job that actually puts food on the table, is I'm a manager in the construction industry in Victoria. It's a very large construction industry, and it's not many Pacific Islanders you'll see in the white, because I'm in a white collar role. Not many you'll see in the white collar role, but you will see them in the doers, the types. You'll see them as laborers. You might see them as leading supervisors. Very few engineers and things like that. I think as a Pacifica manager, I I actually integrate my Pacifica, my traits that I have, that was my values and traditions that were passed on down to me, especially from my mother, uh, on how I conduct myself with my staff, how I conduct myself with others. And one of them is, respecting other people's opinions and values. We work now, Victoria especially is very multicultural. We come across other nationalities that are either very strong in that the man is always correct and things like that. There's certain nationalities that are like them. They come across very strong, like when they speak, or how they present themselves, or how they speak to you. I think as a Pacifica woman, although we may have been brought up like that in our islands, that ingrained servant leadership of understanding and knowing that whatever someone is, background is, it influences, the way they behave. And so with that, and with God always being there with you, I think professionally we try to, understand others and work with others and collaborate. I think setting boundaries is also important, because I don't know about Samoans, but Fijians, it's very hard for us to say no. And, coming to a Western country, I actually found that in my journey as a manager, very hard to say no. And unfortunately, I got tasked with a lot of things, like things that other people were meant to do, but I was doing it and still getting the same money. So as I grew older, and as I educated myself on learning to say no respectfully, I started to actually get, a bit more self-aware and about the way I speak, about the way I interact with other people. And I think that's probably one of the learning to say no is probably one of the disadvantages of our Pacifica thing, because you don't have to say no all the time. It's you gotta know when to say no at the right time, because unfortunately there are people out there that are, they just users, and they will, if they know you are from a Pacifica background, they'll go, don't worry, they'll do it because they never say no. And I was like that, when I was much younger in a junior role. I was taking on all the work, working long hours, still getting paid the same money, missing out on the birthdays, missing out on all the functions because I was writing reports and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's not worth it, not worth it for your mental health and all that. It's quite, it can be difficult of balancing. And even now at my age, I'm still trying to balance that cultural expectation. I think the main thing is to integrate it in such a way that you don't you're not giving away all your, giving up your values and your traditions.
I like that. I think it's important. Samoans are big believers. We're all yes men or yes women. I think it's just culturally, we're told what to do when we're young, and we just do it. So it's been ingrained in us that whatever you get told to do, you just do, and it's important for our people out there to realize that you can say no. There is a way to say no, and sometimes the best thing is to say no. With that being said, I just want to finish off with a couple more questions, Sylvia. What are some of the things that you're really looking forward to this year? Maybe something that's happening down in Melbourne, Victoria. Is there a big event that you might want to obviously put on the show so everyone can hear and know about it? What's something that you're looking forward to this year?
All right. So in 4 weeks, we're going to have our second Victoria Hibiscus Festival. It's a grassroots fashion show. It'll be here in Melbourne, in a suburb called Mulgrave at the Village Green Hotel. And you can get, if you live interstate, you can fly down and get tickets. But if you live in Victoria and you're listening in Melbourne, there's still tickets available. It's only $20. And the reason why we love this grassroots fashion show is because it gives a chance for the women, Pacifica women, to empower them to look at, encouraging them to look at fashion and empower their creative impulses in fashion wear. The other side of what this fashion show does is it actually empowers our youth, our Pacifica youth, who model these outfits of all shapes and sizes. So not the size 2 that you see in the Paris fashion walks. We've got all shapes and sizes, and for people to be proud of who they are, proud of what they produce, because what what has happened is, because we've all mass migrated from the islands to here, a lot of us have forgotten that we actually have skills in either designing clothes, to designing, footwear, to weaving handbags, to making the head garlands and all those things. And we're trying to inspire women to do that, because that could be a form of income for a mother that is staying at home and, can't get a job but wants to do part-time work. That could be an income for a youth, and that could be a pathway for young people who who are not inspired by working in construction or working business, but are inspired by, oh yes, I'm very good at sketch designing um, clothes or fashion wear and things. It's all good fun. We all have a laugh at the end of the night. And yes, we do get good and bad feedback, but we islanders, that's how we roll.
Have it, ladies and gentlemen. You've got the Hibiscus Fashion Show going on. Make sure if you are interstate and you want to attend, there are still some tickets left. If you are in Victoria, please go along and support our Pasifika men and women who are obviously attending the show and a part of the show. It forms a big part of who we are, and also we get to showcase our cultural outfits.
Yes.
Displayed in different ways, displayed in new ways, and new ideas that these designers have. So I'm sure it'll be a massive success. And with that, Sylvia, I just want to finish off. What's your message of encouragement for our listeners today?
I think out of all we've discussed today, I think the main thing is to remain strong in your faith in God, that good things will happen. And yes, it may not have happened yet. And yes, it's been ages since God has answered your prayers. He's still there. He's still listening. He's still waiting for the wheels to turn and the things to set in motion and to set in place. Because in all the things that we do, God needs to be in the center of everything. Before we plan something, during the whatever we've planned, and even after we planned, and that includes applying for protection visas, because only God knows what you're going through. Your friends and your family don't. They can't see into your internal mind and your internal, into your soul. Only God knows what you're going through. Only God will help with your decisions and help guide you. And you'll know in your heart when you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And hopefully you do the right thing, and God will continue to bless you throughout your life.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and I really do appreciate your time, Sylvia. I know it is getting late, and some kids need to be fed, so I really appreciate your time. But to our listeners out there, if you are tuning in right now and please go back and watch the show. Please go back and watch what we've run through, because there might be someone that you may know who might benefit from this situation, from this discussion that we've had. It's been very, very, very interesting, and it's also been very eye-opening for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people out there as well, Sylvia. So without further ado, that brings us to the conclusion of our show. Sylvia, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing this information and sharing light on personal protection visas, and also sharing light on your experience, your upbringing, advice that you're able to give to our Pasifika people. It's something that we need more of, and I thank you for your time. And I just wish that we have a very, very safe night. Blessings, and for now, farewell, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay blessed.
There were no Samoan lawyers in this industry back in the day that were doing what I'm doing, which is giving back to the Pasifika community. A lot of people see lawyers in the negative light, and my job is to change it. And how do we do that? Step by step. We build the trust in the community. And that's all I want to do, is I just want to help my people and do good things for my people. The biggest problem is that we're underrepresented. We are unaware of our rights and our entitlements. My job as a Pasifika lawyer in Queensland is to educate our people. The best part of my job is being able to see the smile on my people's faces, to be able to see them progress on and move on with their lives. We have a saying in our firm that says, our job or our mission is to enrich the lives of every single one of our clients. And I believe that to be very true. the best part of my job is leading our clients in a better position than before they met us.